Good morning, dear all. Today, our guest has joined, Dr. Arun B. Nair, Associate Professor. I invite Dr. Asha Devi, Professor, Mahatma Gandhi University, to start the session. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Shibu. Good morning and a warm welcome to all the participants. It is my pleasure to chair the fourth day of the national webinar on education during COVID-19 and beyond. Let us start today's session by invoking the blessings of the Almighty in our minds. This is Mahatma Gandhi University speaking to you. I acknowledge with due respect our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sabu Thomas, and the Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Arvind Kumar, for the moral support and team leadership in the activities of our school. I take this opportunity to congratulate the organizing committee, Dr. Sajana Jalil, Dr. Ismail Tamalsheri, and Dr. Sibu Ginetto for the meticulous workout of this webinar. Our beloved HOD Professor Minikutti, Dean Professor Dea Jais, Senior Faculty Member Professor TV Tulasidaran Sir, and Dr. Muhammad for coordinating beautifully through the program. Today's webinar session will be enthralled by a special speech on psychosocial impact of COVID-19 on students, teachers, and parents. Of course, the fallout of education sector due to the uncontainable spread of the pandemic is abysmal. To talk on this topic, we have today with us a special guest from the medical field, Dr. Arun B. Nair. He is a well-known psychiatrist, a reputed medical teacher, an eminent author, columnist, distinguished motivational and acclaimed public deep insight in human cognitive behavior has helped a wide range of people struggling with social and mental issues. Dr. Arun B. Nair is currently the Associate Professor of Psychiatry, Medical College, Trivandrum. He has authored 15 books testing aspects of psychiatry, including Live, Learn, Look Bright, and Advances in Psychiatry and Medicine. His knowledge and proficiency in the field of psychiatry is reflected in these books and many other research articles he has written. Many of us are familiar with him through the social awareness programs conducted through various TV channels. He has completed more than 10 episodes. Also, we noted him in Multiple Manorama TV channel as the judge of the reality show Made for Each Other. And when he appeared in the civil service personality test model telecast by Amrita TV in the program One in Millions. He has to his credit over 1,000 popular articles on health and social issues in various newspapers and periodicals. Also, he authored the section on mental health in Sarva Roga Vijnana Kosham, the first in. He has developed a life skills education module, Ullasa Parvagal, for SCRT. He has to his credit many research articles on adolescent suicide and the topics like that. His resources and expertise shared for training programs conducted by the Health and Family Welfare Department of Government of Kerala, Institute of Management in Government, which is giving training to the officials in the government services, and Academic Staff College of Kerala University. And he is a recipient of many awards and certificates and recognitions, including the Award of 2019. A lot more about this young, enthusiastic medical doctor, but brevity constrains me, and I know the participants eager to listen to Dr. And on behalf of the organization of this webinar, School of Pedagogical Sciences and each one of the participants, I extend a very warm welcome to you, sir. And Dr. Arun, may please take over for the presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam, for those kind of introductory words. My sincere gratitude to MG University School of Pedagogical Sciences, organizers, for giving me this great opportunity to interact with this august audience. And the topic for today's discussion would be the psychosocial impact of COVID pandemic, specifically on teachers, students, and parents. As we all know, it is more than 6 months since the COVID pandemic has struck in a big way, leading to lockdown and quite a few consequences following that. So if we go back in history to the Spanish flu pandemic, which started in 1918, it was another pandemic which spread all over the world, across the continents, affecting millions all over the world, leading to a lot of deaths. And one fine morning, mysteriously, the virus disappeared without any kind of human interventions. But what followed after the disappearance of the virus was what is referred to in history as the period of the Great Depression. Every sector in the society collapsed irreparably. The education sector, the industrial sector, the business sector, the agrarian sector, everything collapsed. And as a result of which, there was huge financial and emotional turmoil all over the world. Many people went into depression. The rate of suicides shot up alarmingly. The drug addiction problem became a huge issue, and there were interpersonal conflicts as well. So, as a result of all these, a prolonged phase of extremely negative living, negative thought process, and negative emotional surface. And that is referred to as the Great Depression. So, when we go through the COVID pandemic right now, we are absolutely not sure when this pandemic is going to end. The pandemic is flaring like anything with more than 8,000 cases per day in Kerala alone. Still, we have somewhat overcome the initial fear associated with the pandemic. People appear to be a bit more confident and comfortable in handling it. But it has posed quite a lot of new problems in the society. So let me start my discussion by mentioning about the psychological impact of the pandemic in people who are subjected to isolation and quarantine. As we know, quarantine and isolation are methods which are done to separate those people who are affected by the pandemic, suspected to be affected by the pandemic, or who have had contact with those people who are affected by the pandemic. So we are separating them from the other population of the society so that it doesn't spread. So a study which is published in the month of May in the world famous medical journal Lancet showed the percentage of people who are affected psychologically as a result of this quarantine and isolation. 72% of the population who are subject to isolation and quarantine suffer from depressive symptoms. They suffer from sadness, reduced interest in day-to-day activities, tiredness, sleep disturbance, etc. 58% of the population suffer from unexplained anger outburst, which is disproportionate to the stimulus. 20% of them suffer from anxiety disorders, which include sleep disturbance, sudden panic attacks, phobia, anxiety about countering the illness, and so many such things. 18% of the population suffer from fear. Fear primarily about the illness, fear about death, fear about what will happen, etc. And around 10% of the population suffer from intense guilt feelings. Guilt whether they have become the source of spread of the virus, whether they would spread it to their own near and dear ones, their loved ones, the children, the elderly parents, etc. So these happen to be the psychological impact of quarantine and isolation. But coming to the long-standing impact in people who are not directly affected by the virus, but still affected by the lockdown and restrictions posed by the pandemic. Let us come to children. Coming to small children, the children ranging from primary school children to high school, higher secondary, and college students, Large number of them are exposed to a new kind of education. The online education system is that we were not prepared enough to face this kind of a scenario. We never understood that this thing is going to happen to us. We never prepared ourselves adequately, even though the academicians who are listening to this lecture might be well versed with all these sorts of online conferences, online lectures, etc. The large number of students and teachers were not exposed to this kind of training. So it has become a huge challenge. The challenge of online education, that has become a big problem. So I get feedback from teachers, college teachers, university teachers, professional college teachers, school teachers, everyone, that this online education is posing a few new challenges. Number one is from the part of the students. Students, you see, they are well versed with digital technology much better than the teachers and the parents. Because teachers and parents of the present generation, they received this digital technology halfway in their life. After they had completed their schooling or when they were into the college, the digital technology exploded into our environment, and they had to learn this art of mastering the digital technology in a new way. As a result of which, they are not very well versed with the technology of digital learning. But most of the students in the present era, especially those people who are born in the new millennium, after 2000, they were born into the world where the technology, the information technology was already there. So it was part and parcel of their life from day one. They were at a young age of their life itself. They were exposed to that right from a very young age itself. As a result of which, they are better equipped, better versed, better capable of handling this kind of technologies. So the complaint which I receive from most of the teachers is that students in the morning, they log into the online classes. Once they log in, once they make their attendance marked, their presence felt, then they switch off the mic, they switch off the video, open another window in the same digital equipment and start playing online games or chatting through social media or even watching porn. So how does this come to the attention of the teachers is that there was a situation in a class where multiple students in the same class were playing a multi-level game where teacher was discoursing in class. Unfortunately, one person forgot to mute the microphone, as a result of which the noise generated by playing the online game became audible to everyone else, including the teacher. It was then that the teacher identified that the process which was happening on the other side of the table was not listening into the class, but playing online games. So that is one big problem. So regarding parents, how do parents handle this phenomena of behavioral addiction, the students, the children, which has been a new epidemic in the pandemic season? So what do you mean by behavioral addiction? I shall explain that term once more. Addiction is a phenomena in which you use a particular thing. It may be a chemical or it may be something else. You like that, you derive a pleasure out of it. To get the same degree of pleasure, keep on repeating the use of that again and again and again. And as a result of which, what happens is that you are incapable of following a normal way of life. And that is the problem associated with that. So what happens really, or what happens associated with this phenomena is that, you know, if it is drug addiction or chemical addiction, as you call it may be alcohol addiction, it may be tobacco addiction, or it may be any other kind of addiction. So what happens is that when you use that chemical, whether it's alcohol or cannabis or whatever it is, it enters into the body, produces certain chemical changes in the body. And as a result of this chemical change, you get addicted to that substance. You want to use that substance again and again and again. And finally, this substance becomes the only thing which gives you happiness. Nothing else gives you happiness. That's how you become addicted to the drug or addicted to the, the chemical. So the next type of addiction is what is known as behavioral addiction. So in behavioral addiction, what happens is that you do a particular act, you do a particular action, and you enjoy that action. You get a pleasure out of that action. So after getting pleasure out of that action, to get the same degree of pleasure, you keep on using that again and again. For example, you play an online game. You love that. You get a pleasure out of that. So to get the same degree of pleasure, you keep on playing that game again and again and again. And finally, that online game becomes the only thing which gives you pleasure in life. This is what is called behavioral addiction. So behavioral addiction has increased by leaps and bounds among all sections of the society, most commonly among the students. There are a variety of behavioral addictions. Most common one is that related to the digital devices. Online gaming addiction, the most common type of behavioral addiction. Porn addiction, social media addiction, addiction to dating apps, and even addiction to just YouTube videos or any other videos like that. So this is increasing by leaps and bounds. So what is the behavioral or psychological impact of behavioral addiction among students? Let us examine that. So till last year, till 2019, we mental health professionals used to speak widely about the concept of ideal screen time or healthy screen time for a human being. We used to tell that for all people less than 3 years of age, no screen time is advisable, because the phenomena called visual memory, the ability to store information in the form of visuals in your brain, that begins by the time you're 3 years of age. The brain mechanisms, the brain areas to store information in the form of visuals develops only after 3 years of age. So before 3 years of age, whatever you see, it doesn't get stored in your brain. So there is no purpose in exposing a child less than 3 years of age to visual information. So no mobile, no visual media for children less than 3 years of age. Till 3 years of age, the most prominent method of emotional development of a child is body contact with the parents, touch of the parents. So maximum time you have to spend contacting the body of the child. You have to touch the child, hug the child, make the child sleep on your chest till 3 years of age. And that is the most important method for psychosocial and emotional development of a child up to 3 years of age. Tactile stimulation or touch. Only after 3 years of age, visual memories start. So for a child 3 to 8 years of age, ideal screen time was supposed to be 30 minutes. And for people above 8 years, till the end of adolescence, maybe till 19 years of age, ideally 1 hour per day was supposed to be the ideal screen time. So we used to speak at large about this phenomena of ideal screen time. But what has happened now this year is that once the online education has started, this formula has gone out. It's impossible to restrict the screen time to less than 1 hour in a college student or a high school student right now, because they are supposed to listen to the class right from morning till evening. It may go on to a few hours. So naturally the screen time has increased. And now what has happened along with that? We always mention that the students of the present generation lack physical fitness. They should exercise, they should go out, they should play, they should expose themselves to sunlight. So let me share with you the results of a study, a research study we had conducted a couple of months back in August. We examined around 300 students between 13 to 18 years of age, high school, higher secondary, and probably the first year of college. Those students who had poor academic performance the last few months, those who were doing very well till the previous academic year, but once the beginning of this pandemic and lockdown, their academic performance had become very bad. So when we examined these 300 students, we identified that in 96% of those students, the level of vitamin D in the body was extremely low. It was deficient, less than 10. So what is the relevance of vitamin D? Vitamin D, we know that it's a vitamin which is synthesized by our own body. When you expose yourself to sunlight, the ultraviolet B rays come to contact with the cholesterol derivatives in the skin, convert it into cholecalciferol, and that is vitamin. Vitamin D is very important in the health of the teeth, bones, muscles, for the general physical strength, etc. But of late, in the last few years, we have understood that vitamin D is much more important than just providing physical health or bone strength. One of the most important functions of vitamin D is information processing of the brain. Information processing of a brain is a function which has 5 steps. Listening to a new question, understanding its meaning, looking for answers to that question in your brain systems, in your memory systems, converting those answers into words, connecting those words using propositions, conjunctions, and creating a meaningful sentence and expressing it. So these are the 5 steps. But it automatically happens so that we are not much aware of the steps which are happening. If the level of vitamin D is low in the body, the information processing of brain slows down. You develop something called cognitive dullness. When somebody asks you a question, you take time to understand it. You may repeat, what is the question? Yes, what is it? Once more. And only after multiple times you may be able to understand it. And even after you've processed the question, finding out the answer is again a slow process. Each and every step of the information processing slows down. So that affects the academic performance. That affects the concentration, memory, and the academic performance as such. So children with poor vitamin D levels go down in their academic performance. They appear dull throughout the day. They appear sleepy during the daytime. They feel fatigued, and lack of energy is very palpable. And even more important is vitamin D deficiency contributes a lot to immunodeficiency also. Vitamin D is an important aspect of immunity. Right now, as per the evidence-based medicine, the only medicine which has got a preventive role against COVID is vitamin D. A study published by Lancet recently showed that if the serum level of vitamin D is more than 50, the chance for getting respiratory infections, including COVID, is reduced by 90%. 1 week back, another study by the University of Boston showed that those people with adequate level of vitamin D in blood, even if they get COVID infection, it doesn't run into complications. It doesn't lead to death. It doesn't lead to debilitating condition. It just happens like another viral fever and disappears without a problem. So that has been a very wonderful discovery, because we know right now that if you expose yourself to sunlight for at least 1 hour per day, the vitamin levels may be okay in your body, and you have a protective power against getting COVID. So there is this phenomena called angiotensin converting enzyme receptor, which is located in the lungs. It is with this receptor, the ACE receptor, that the COVID virus binds, gets into the lungs, creates pneumonia and complications. But the thing is that if the vitamin D levels in blood is good, high levels of vitamin D are present in the body, the vitamin D goes and binds with the ACE receptor in lungs, occupying the receptor, preventing the COVID virus from binding to the receptor. So in case, even if the COVID virus enters into the body, it doesn't have a chance to bind to the ACE receptors, because those receptors are already occupied by vitamin D. So the virus produces an asymptomatic infection. It doesn't lead to much of a complications, and it just goes away without affecting the person. So this is a very important thing. So the discovery we made is that vitamin D levels are coming down significantly. You can correlate this with a lack of exposure to sunlight and prolonged exposure to artificial light in the form of what you call the form of mobile or digital devices. That's a very important problem. So here, one very important thing which we have to tell all people, irrespective of the status, whether they are students, teachers, parents, anybody, expose yourself to at least 1 hour of sunlight every day. Morning 7 to 9 or evening 4 to 6. If you are incapable of exposing yourself to 1 hour of sunlight at a time, spread it, distribute it to 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. You can walk in front of your home or on the road in front of your home and get enough of sunlight to develop sufficient vitamin. If there is somebody in your home who is incapable of coming out, bedridden or something, with the consent of your doctor, give vitamin D supplements. 60,000 international units of vitamin D tablets or sachets once in a week for 8 weeks. That may help to increase the level of vitamin D even in those people who cannot expose themselves to sunlight. So, information processing and vitamin D. That is one important thing. Next thing is regarding the screen time again. Nowadays, the students are taking advantage of the online classes they are supposed to attend. They are telling the parents that notes, assignments, and things like that are coming through online sources. So we have no way other than to expose yourself to much and much of screen time. And one important thing which many people say is that one very important problem is that many people say is that late night these students expose themselves to lot of digital information, maybe games, maybe chats, and that will definitely help to overcome this problem is what many people believe. But the thing is that what happens in reality is that there is this particular sleep disorder which has surfaced among the students, which is referred to as the delayed sleep wake phase onset disorder. A huge bombastic name, but don't worry. Just means that the time of going to sleep is delayed. It happens after 12 at midnight, at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. Till then, they are exposed to digital media. They wake up very late, maybe the time of noon. So the time of going to sleep is disturbed. It becomes late. The time of waking up is also disturbed. And what problem is that even if they go to sleep at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, because they are supposed to attend an online class at 8 a.m., they are supposed to wake up somehow by 7:30 or 8. So they get only 4 or 5 hours of sleep. So this is another big problem. Students have to sleep for at least 6 hours continuously in an uninterrupted fashion at night. What is the purpose of sleep? Sleep is the most important aspect which maintains your mental health. There are two definite purposes for sleep. Number one, it is only during this period of sleep that the phenomenon called consolidation of memory happens. Consolidation of memory means whatever you have learned by reading, listening, seeing, doing, that gets organized in the brain, planted in the brain at night when you sleep. And for this consolidation to happen, 6 hours of continuous sleep is needed, number one. Number two, the brain cells are active during the day. Metabolic activities happen in the brain cells, as a result of which waste materials are generated. The process of expelling and excreting the waste materials generated in the brain cells during the daytime, that happens during night when the person sleeps. And there is a system in the brain called glymphatic system, not lymphatic system. Lymphatic system with lymph nodes and lymphatic channels are present in all parts of the body other than the brain. Brain is devoid of lymphatic system. There is another system called glymphatic system. It's a recent introduction. There were showrobe in spaces and things like that. So with the help of this system, the metabolic waste generated in the brain are expelled from the brain at night during sleep. And for this process also, 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep is needed. So if you don't sleep for 6 hours, number one, consolidation of memory doesn't happen. So whatever you have learned during the day doesn't stick to the brain, and as a result, you are incapable of what you call reproducing it in exams or during crucial times. Number two is that since the brain cell is full of metabolic waste, since you hadn't got a good sleep, they have not been expelled. The wastes are deposited in the brain cells. So during the daytime, you feel dull. You are incapable of concentrating. You feel sleepy. You feel tired. You feel like sleeping, and just like what many students are doing right now, they log into the class and after switching off their camera and video, they just turn down and sleep. So that's the problem. So ensure 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. What is the best time to sleep? That is another question. Ideally, our brain gets good sleep because of the help of a neurotransmitter, a chemical called melatonin in the brain. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland in the brain. Melatonin production happens at night during darkness. And by the time it is 11 to 12 at night, the melatonin production till 5:36 in the morning. By the time the sunlight arrives by 6 a.m., melatonin production is finished. So you are best likely to get continuous, uninterrupted, comfortable sleep if you sleep during the time in which the melatonin production is at its peak, that is between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. So if you sleep during that time, you'll get comfortable sleep, which will be uninterrupted. It would serve the purpose of a good sleep. So many students and many parents and even teachers say that we are not getting good sleep these days. We try to sleep, but a lot of negative thoughts are coming to this. So what to do? So how to get good sleep? The methods to get good sleep, we have used the terminology called sleep hygiene exercises. We practice sleep hygiene exercises, you are likely to get good sleep. So what are the sleep hygiene exercises which we should do? Number one, go to sleep and wake up at a fixed time every day. Don't change the sleep time frequently. What happens is that sometimes, because there is some cricket or football match, you go to sleep at 2 a.m. in the morning. Next day, you watch an interesting movie or a series in Netflix or something and go to sleep at 4. Third day, you go to sleep at 10. This frequent change of sleep time is not advised. If you go to sleep at 11 at every night, make it 11 unless you have got some compelling preoccupations related to your profession or your academic things. Don't change the time of sleep. That is number one. Number two, avoid tea, coffee, colas after 4 p.m. in the evening, because all these materials contain caffeine, and caffeine stimulates the brain and keeps you remain awake. So that is the problem with caffeine. So avoid any caffeinated beverages after 4 p.m. in the evening. So this would help you to get good sleep. If still you have difficulty in sleeping, avoid tea and coffee after 2 p.m. the afternoon. That will also help. Around 5 to 6 hours before your proposed time of sleeping, do some vigorous exercise with exposure to sunlight between 5 and 6 in the evening. 45 minutes, do some exercise, vigorous exercise, so that you sweat and you get some sunlight. So exposure to sunlight will generate enough vitamin D, and sweating, that would help to burn some fat, and exercise would help to improve the blood flow to the brain, and exercise would also increase the level of dopamine in the brain, which would help to improve your concentration. And again, it increases the level of another neurotransmitter called endorphins in the brain, which will give you a sense of well-being. And immediately after this exercise, take bath in cold water. This is helpful because when you exercise, when you sweat, your blood vessels expand. And when you take bath in cold water, your blood vessels contract. This alternating contraction and expansion of the blood vessels improves the resilience of the blood vessel walls. It is very important to keep your blood vessels sturdy and strong, because any collapse of the blood vessels can lead to stroke, heart attack, things like that. So when the wall of the blood vessels collapse, there is bleed that can lead to cerebrovascular accident or stroke. So it is very important to keep the blood vessels healthy. And this exposure to sunlight and exercise followed by taking bath in cold water will help to improve the resilience of the blood vessel walls so that the blood vessels will remain very healthy. And Next thing is probably the most difficult thing I am going to tell in this session, which you will have difficulty in practicing. At least for 1 hour before your proposed time of going to sleep, avoid all visual media, including mobile, iPad, laptop, desktop, tablet, television. I'm sure most of you would be telling in your minds that impossible. It's impossible because we have made it impossible. We have made certain things part of our life to such an extent that we cannot imagine a life without that. Have you heard the term no mobophobia? It's nothing but fear of losing your mobile. Once your mobile phone is lost, you become stuck. You cannot go forward. That's true with me also. A lot of information is stored in your mobile phone regarding your office numbers, the number of your colleagues, number of people important to you. A lot of other information and data, the research works you're doing, everything is in your mobile. If you lose your mobile, you feel as if you're lost in a jungle without any idea of how to proceed. So that's no more. And that is part of the modern civilization, the modern technological revolution, as you call it. So keep away your mobile phone for at least 1 hour before the proposed time of sleeping. Because what happens is that a common error which is done by most people is that they try to sleep by browsing the internet or by chatting social. The problem is that the close visual field light that is getting to the brain, that is interrupting the production of melatonin in your brain. And when the melatonin production is interrupted, your sleep would be delayed. Once you keep off the mobile for the next 1 hour at least, you won't be able to sleep. So if you are going to sleep at 11 p.m., keep away your mobile phone at 10 p.m. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen with you. And just before you go to sleep, practice some simple relaxation exercise. The simplest relaxation exercise is deep breathing exercise, deep inhalation with very slow exhalation, 25 times with eyes closed, lying down. Simplest relaxation exercise, which would help you to go to a cool sleep. Again, many people ask me regarding exercise. What is exercise? How should you exercise? What is the scientific way of exercise? I shall explain to you what you mean by exercise. Most of the studies have shown that 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week spread over 5 days is good in preventing lifestyle-induced diseases like diabetes, hypertension, obesity. For those people who are already suffering from these disorders also, this kind of exercise would help in preventing complications. But 150 minutes of moderate exercise, what do you mean by moderate exercise? Please listen to this point. If you get this information alone from this lecture, and if you put it into practice in your life, this lecture is worth its effort. So moderate exercise, to identify what is moderate exercise, first, you have to do a calculation. You have to calculate your maximum heart rate. Maximum heart rate is the maximum number of times your heart can beat per minute. Depends upon your age. 220 minus your age is the maximum heart rate for you. So if you're a 20-year-old student, 220 minus 20, 200 beats per minute is your maximum heart rate. If you're a 40-year-old assistant professor, 220 minus 40, 180 per minute is your maximum heart rate. If you're a 60-year-old professor, 220 minus 60, 160 beats per minute is your maximum heart rate. Any activity in which your heart rate is at least 60% of your maximum heart rate is defined as moderate exercise. So for a person who is 20 years of age, 200 is the maximum heart rate. 60% of that is 120 beats per minute. So for a boy or a girl who is 20 years of age, you have to do exercise with heart rate around 120 beats per minute. For a person who is 40, 180 is the maximum heart rate. 60% of that would be 108 per minute. For a person who is 60 years of age, 160 is the maximum heart rate. 60% of that is 96 per minute. So you have to do physical activity with this heart rate at least 30 minutes per day, 5 days a week. Probably on Saturday and Sunday, you can give holiday for exercise also. But for the rest of 5 days, 30 minutes. So 30 minutes means how do you just do that? It's not good to just start walking briskly like that. There are 3 phases for exercise. First phase is the warm-up phase of exercise. First 5 minutes, walk slowly. Walk slowly so that your body gets accustomed to the movement. After that, brisk walking or jogging for the next 30 minutes. Brisk walking or jogging with heart rate 60% of your maximum heart rate, depending on your age, for the next 30 minutes. And finally, the last 5 minutes, cool off phase. Slow down, walk slowly. So totally 40 minutes per minute. First 5 minutes is warm up. Next 30 minutes is brisk exercise, subscribing to the definition of moderate exercise. And finally, last 5 minutes, cool off. So you have to spend 40 minutes in the evening, out of which 30 minutes would be moderate exercise, 5 days a week. If you do this, ideally with exposure to sunlight, that can prevent a lot of your issues. It'll give you enough vitamin D, it'll give you a lot of endorphins, it'll give you a lot of dopamine, it'll improve the blood flow to each and every part of your body. It will keep your body healthy, not only physically, mentally. So these are what you call sleep hygiene tips. So if you follow these, you are likely to get a good sleep. After waking up in the morning also, something similar can be done. So what happens right now in the morning is that once you wake up in the morning, first thing you do is you just rub your eyes, take your mobile and look at your WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever it is, whatever social media you use. So that is another big problem. So once you get up in the morning, it's always wise to remain lying down. Look for 2 minutes, just look up for 2 minutes. Remain still, be patient. You can paste a picture in your bedroom so that you can see it as the first thing when you wake up in the morning. This picture is very useful for students, but useful for teachers, parents, anybody at any age. This picture is known as the self-esteem tree. So what happens about our population is that our population at large suffers from lack of self. So during the civil service interview programs, I have been mentoring students for civil service personality test and interview. We see that people from Kerala, even though they are very knowledgeable and academically brilliant, they have huge issues in communication. The lack of self-esteem comes through in the personality test. But people from North India, despite their lack of knowledge, they communicate very confidently. And that earns them some brownie points. So self-esteem tree, which everybody can practice, especially students, take a huge chart paper, draw the picture of a tree. The tree will have roots, trunk, and branches. At the region of the roots, write down your talents, your skills, your inherent capabilities. Maybe you can sing, you can dance, you're a good speaker, you're a kind-hearted person. Whatever talents you have got, whatever skills you have been blessed with as a human being, note down those things at the region of the roots. Then go to the branches. As a human being, you might have already achieved certain things in your life. Academic achievements, extracurricular achievements, friendships, words of appreciation from teachers, from parents, from anybody else. You can note down all those things in the region of the branches, what you have already attained in life. Then third, come to the trunk. This is not enough. Your life is still remaining ahead. Lot of good things to happen, lot of ambitions, lot of aims, lot of dreams, lot of aspirations for the future. You can note down your plans and ambitions for the future in the region of the trunk. So when you wake up in the morning, the first thing to do is look at the roots of the self-esteem. Just read the talents you have got. Give a self-talk. I have got so much of talent. I'm not bad. Then look at the challenges. Give a self-talk. I have achieved so much in life. I have made some accomplishments in life. I'm not bad. Then the third thing, look at the trunk and tell to yourself, I'm talented. I've achieved so much, but this is not enough. I have to go forward in life, miles to go before I sleep. And these are the things I'm supposed to achieve, accomplish today or in the near future. So this will give you tremendous energy to get up, to be active right from the word go. And you will be proactively doing things to accomplish it. So practice this. Paste the self-esteem tree in your bedroom such that you would be able to see it when you wake up with opened eyes. And immediately after waking up, drink 2 glasses of water at least as the first thing in the morning. Because drinking water will help to cleanse your body from all the metabolic impurities which have been generated, and you feel liberated and healthy. Again, coming to issues related to digital addiction. Many students ask me this question. The only entertainment right now available is mobile. We are not supposed to go out. We cannot mingle with our peers. We cannot play. What else can we do other than mobile? So I tell them, can you imagine life 30 years back when mobile was non-existent in this world? What used to be the ways of entertainment for those people? There have been instances where various parts of the world have been locked down due to epidemics. There have been instances like emergency declared in our country where the freedom of movement was restricted in some way. So many instances like that have happened in history where people could not just go out very freely and have a good time. So take a leaf from those instances. So what we can do is don't limit your life to one particular thing. If you limit your life to one particular thing, you will get addicted to that. So mobile and digital entertainment is a part of life, but it should not be the heart of life. You should have some other things to do. Get up in the morning, go out and do some exercise with exposure to the light sunlight in the morning, around 7 a.m. in the morning. After that, read the newspaper, keep yourself abreast about the current affairs, what is happening in the country, what is happening in the world. It will be good for you. Then engage in some household activities. It would be great if the parents and children can join hands together and do something useful in the house. Cooking, for example. Parents, children, everybody entering into the kitchen, singing songs and having a good time, engaging in cooking. You are learning the essential art of cooking, number one, and you are having a good positive bond between the teachers, between the parents and children also. Another wonderful thing you can do is we have to aim for agricultural self-sufficiency. What do you mean by agricultural self-sufficiency? We should start cultivating something near our house, something like some vegetables or fruits, something which may be useful to you. So even though the area may be limited near your house, you may be staying in a flat, you can do some terrace cultivation, things like that. So the art of planting a tree, nurturing it, seeing it grow up, is equivalent to the art of bringing up a child. There are parallels between these two processes. Because when you plant a tree and see it grow up and nurture it, you develop the art of empathy. You develop the art of understanding the emotions of another person, experiencing his emotions as such and reacting accordingly. You become a better, refined human being, become a more compassionate human being. So that is why I always tell we should encourage students to do some sort of agricultural activities, at least in a limited level, because it will help in some way to make you self-sufficient. At the same time, it will help to improve empathy among students, because the art of cultivating is equivalent to the art of bringing up a child. Again, that is an outdoor activity that will give you a sense of well-being. Encourage students to read, because There are different ways in which you can grow as a social being. The number of cells in the brain grows only till 3 years of age. After 3 years of age, the number of cells don't increase much. But still, the social and psychological growth of a human being doesn't end by the time it is 3 years. How does the growth happen after 3 years? After 3 years, more and more connections, more and more synapses are developed between the already formed neurons. For more synapses or for more connections to develop between these neurons, we have to expose the child to a variety of experiences. The child is just waking up in the morning, going to tuition, then going to school, returning in the evening, again going to tuition, sitting and studying at home. If this is the monotonous routine of a child, 7 days a week, the child's psychosocial development is going to be impaired. But if you expose the child to different kind of experiences, different plays, different games, different languages, different artistic abilities, different technologies, different human beings, different experiences, that would help to develop more and more synapses in the brain. So right now, physical limitations of lockdown and COVID is preventing us from exposing the children to so much of experiences outdoor. But another way to get experience is to read, because every book reflects the experience of a human being. By reading more and more of books, you develop more synapses in the brain. You become enriched as a human being. So one big problem is that students these days resort to digital reading too much. You can discourage that. Ask the children to read books, because reading books doesn't have the negative impact of digital reading. Because digital reading, if you do it for too long, the coordination between the left and right hemispheres of the brain is impaired. You develop attention deficit, you become impulsive, become impatient, aggressive, irritable, etc. So to prevent that kind of things, what we can do is we can encourage them to read. And after reading, discussion about what was read, an open discussion in the evening. At least 1 hour per day, the children and the parents have to spend with each other. And then only they can communicate with each other. They can open new horizons in front of the children and help the children develop it. And one more very important thing which I want to convey to this audience is a lot of suicides have happened, including among children in the period of the lockdown. September 21st, September 10th was World Suicide Prevention Day. And this year we identified that the suicide rate in Kerala is coming up again. Kerala was number one in suicide rate till around 10 years back. But over the last 10 years, as a result of a lot of awareness programs through visual media, print media, radios, and even other platforms, suicide rate drastically reduced in Kerala. But in the last couple of years, again, the suicide rate is coming up. The latest suicide statistics in Kerala is 24.3 per 1 lakh population, 8,556 suicides in 2019, around 15 times that much suicide attempts. So why this is happening? Despite students being in the comforts of the home, devoid of academic stress and other stresses, still suicides happen. So the problem is that unidentified mental health issues are leading to suicides. WHO has pointed out that 50% of the mental health issues seen in adults start before 14 years of age. 75% of the mental health issues seen in adults start before 24 years of age. If those mental health issues are identified early and treated, a large number of them can be completely cured. But the problem which happens here is that most of these problems are not identified at the right time. They are identified much later. By the time it would have been several. So what we need to understand is we need to identify the concept of common mental disorders. What do you mean by common mental disorders? Common mental disorders means mental disorders which, uh, you know, are very commonly prevalent in our population. A study conducted by Kerala State Mental Health Authority in 2016 showed that 12.8% of the total population of Kerala suffer from at least one mental illness requiring treatment. 9% of the total population of Kerala suffer from depression requiring treatment. So let me explain to you what is depression. Why I am telling this to you is World Health Organization has very rightly pointed out that depression is the commonest, worldwide prevalent, easily preventable cause of suicide. If you identify and treat depression, you can cure the illness, you can prevent suicides. If you don't identify depression, it can lead to suicides. There are 9 symptoms for depression. Number 1 is continuous sadness from morning till evening. Number 2, reduced interest in previously pleasurable activities. Number 3 is unexplained tiredness. Number 4 is sleep disturbance. Number 5 is appetite disturbance. Number 6, concentration impairment. Number 7 is slowness of thoughts and slowness of actions. Somebody asks you a question, you take a long time to answer. Somebody asks you to do something, you take a long time to execute that. Number 8, depressive thoughts, hopelessness, helplessness, inappropriate guilt, and a feeling of worthlessness, a feeling that nobody is understanding you, you are alone, there is nobody to help you, you are a burden to your family, things like that. When you think in that direction, the 9th symptom is very clear, death wishes and suicidal actions. Out of these 9 symptoms, if any 5 of them are continuously present for 2 weeks, that person is likely to suffer from depressive episode or major depressive disorder, Vishada Rogam as we call it. If it is an initial phase of depression, mild depression, you can handle it by counseling, psychological treatments. But if it is severe depression, you need to treat that person with medicines. Because there are 2 neurotransmitters in your brain, serotonin and norepinephrine, which are impaired during depression. When the level of serotonin goes down, you feel sad, hopeless, and suicidal. When the level of norepinephrine goes down, you feel tired, fatigued, and without any interest in doing activities. So by giving medicines which improve the level of these neurotransmitters, you can completely cure depression. Usually 9 months of treatment, with 9 months of treatment, depression is completely cured in 90% of people, and you can stop medicines also. But what happens in our country is that people don't take treatment for the required period of time. As I say to them, if you develop a fracture of your leg, your doctor has advised you to plaster it for 6 months. What will happen if you throw away the plaster after 3 months? The fracture hasn't perfectly healed. So when you try to walk, a small pressure on that spot and again it will fracture. Just like that, in depression, unless you take treatment for 9 months, the chemicals in your brain are not normalized. So if you stop treatment after 2 or 3 months, your brain hasn't recovered. The next you will go back to depression. But if you take treatment for 9 months, the neurotransmitters would have normalized. The chance for getting a depression again is very, very less. So let me conclude my session by introducing 2 terminologies. Number 1 is mental health literacy, Manasikarogya Saksharata in Malayalam. Mental health literacy means an information regarding what is mind, what is mental health, what is mental illness, and why does a person develop mental illness. Mind is nothing but the functioning of the brain. Mind is a constellation of the higher functions of the brain. And mental illnesses are largely chemical imbalances in the genetic basis for many mental illnesses, and there are also reasons including life stressors and things like that. Large number of mental illnesses are completely curable, but of course there are a few mental illnesses which are not completely curable also. Mental retardation which happens right from childhood, completely cured. Dementia which happens in old age, you cannot completely cure. Except for those, the mental illnesses can be completely cured with proper treatment. The next terminology I want to introduce to you is mental health first aid. First aid is a term which is very familiar to all of us. First aid is an intervention which any person who is not medically trained can do when a person known to him is suffering from a physical problem, like, an injury, an accident, snake bite, electrocution, anything like that, or drowning. But we are not used to the term mental health first aid. Mental health first aid is an intervention which anybody who is not trained in psychology or psychiatry can do to help a person in his knowledge who is suffering from a mental health issue. So there are 5 steps for mental health first aid. Number 1 is approach the person in distress. Maybe a student of yours, a colleague of yours, a family member of yours, a relative of yours, a neighbor of yours, suffering from a change in his behavior. He was very active, but now he is somewhat reticent, retarded, not interested in communicating. Very visible change in his behavior. Such a situation, you have to go to him proactively and inquire what is troubling him. That is the first step. If it is an adolescent student, they would have problem in communicating their distress to adults, especially teachers. The reason is that they feel that the elders won't understand the problem. They feel that the elders would trivialize the problem, make fun of them, criticize them, and won't keep this problem secret. So once you approach a person in distress, you have to give 5 assurances to him. Number 1, that you would be a patient listener. You would listen to his problems till the end. Number 2, that you won't trivialize his problems and run it down. Number 3, you won't criticize him or scold him. Number 4, you won't make fun of him for that. Number 5, you would keep that information confidential. If you communicate these things, and if the other person is convinced about that, he would open up to you. Then comes the second step. Listen. Listen patiently till the end. Listen non-judgmentally. Listen without interruption. Give a patient ear to him till the end. Empathetic listening. Non-judgmental listening. That itself may be good for that person to recover from his stress. Still, even after that, the third step is give information. The person may be troubled due to some misinformation, some misconception. Correct those misconceptions. Give scientific information. If he is worried that a friend of his is not talking to him, and that is the reason for his worry, you can tell him that that friend may be going through some personal stressors, incapacitating him from engaging in social media. So that information itself may relieve. Even after giving information, if still the problem is remaining, the fourth step, encourage professional help. Connect him to a mental health professional, a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. And with the help of that professional, he can come out of that. If you feel that that person is suicidal, inform his relatives, inform his parents that he is harboring suicidal ideas. He needs professional help. Encourage them to seek professional help. And fifth step is encourage social support. If a person is stressed, you should not allow him to be alone. It's the responsibility of the teachers, parents, neighbors, friends, colleagues to make sure that the person does not become isolated. We have to stay with him, give him a supporting hand, and help him out of his crisis. That is the best human quality which anybody can show. The Harvard Human Development Study or grant study, which was done in Harvard University, still continuing. It showed 5 important factors which enhance or prolong the lifespan of humans. Regular exercise, proper diet, abstaining from alcohol, doing away with tobacco products, all of these enhance lifespan. But there is a 5th factor which enhances lifespan more than the other 4. That is the quality of human relationships which you develop during your childhood and adolescence. This is the most important factor which enhances the lifespan of a human. So encourage the children, encourage the youngsters to interact with others, to engage in maximum in social activities, not remain isolated. I would wind up this session by narrating a small story which was mentioned by a world famous psychiatrist, Dr. Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who had a fortune or misfortune to get, to live in the concentration camps of the Nazi Germany during the Second World War. Viktor Frankl belonged to the Jewish clan, and as was usual, along with so many others, he was also arrested and put in the concentration camp. So it was a life-changing, leveling experience for him. Viktor Frankl, very celebrated, young, famous doctor, suddenly losing everything in his life and put in a cell along with half a dozen people who haven't seen the doorstep of even a school. Viktor Frankl survived, lived enough to survive the Holocaust of that concentration camp. Once the Second World War ended, he came out of it. He resumed his practice. He built up a huge popular practice. He became world famous. He wrote a few books also. And this experience happened during the last phase of his life, during the old age phase of his life. One midnight, when Frankl was about to go to sleep, he received a call. His telephone was ringing. When he attended the call, it was a lady who was not known to him at all. That lady informed him through phone that, "Doctor, I'm contemplating suicide. I'm seriously thinking of ending my life." Frankel inquired about her life, patiently listened to her, and after listening to her, he gave her reason after reason why she should not commit suicide, why she should live in this earth. The conversation extended for more than an hour. At the end of that conversation, that lady informed Frankel that, "Okay, doctor, I'm not ending my life. I don't want to die." Frankel felt happy. He hung up the phone. Around 3 months later, Frankel went for a public function, and when he was returning after his speech, a young lady came and met him. "Doctor, do you remember me? Yes. I'm the young lady who called you 3 months back one midnight, threatening to commit suicide." Frankel felt really happy that somebody was expressing gratitude. Frankel asked that lady, "That night, I had given you so many reasons why you shouldn't commit suicide. Which out of those reasons prompted you to live in this world and not to commit suicide?" The lady looked at Frankel's eyes and told him, "None of them. It was none of the reasons you gave." Frankel was surprised. Then what? That lady told him, "It was the fact that somebody who was not known to me, who hadn't seen me ever in life, was willing to spend 1 hour of his time at night listening to my story, patiently listening to my story, talking to me, comforting me." That was the factor. The world in which someone was willing to listen to me happened or appeared to me to be a world worth living. That is the reason why I decided to live, and that's why I'm here. It's a wonderful and eye-opening experience for all of us. It's not those intellectual words of wisdom which prompts a person, gives him a peace of mind. It is probably the art of listening, patiently listening, giving a hand of support, giving an idea that you are there with him or her. That may be enough person to live in this world, to postpone suicide. So the time is exactly 11:40. I was supposed to finish at this time. I've completed my time. So thank you very much for your very patient listening, and thank you once again for this great opportunity. Thank you.
Asha ma'am?
Hello.
Yes.
Teacher, you can speak. Wonderful session. Now, over to Ibu for now it's a session, isn't it? Hello. Any
Ma'am,
audience has any doubt? Any of them is having a doubt? They can ask clear with the audience and.
So it's time for discussion. The floor is open for all of us. Any doubts or questions to the expert?
I think I have a couple of questions in the chat box. Can I answer that?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Okay. So let me go from the last question. Please suggest some tips or suggestions while we face panic or stress situations. 3 simple tips for you. Number 1 is practice the deep breathing exercise I told you in my session. Deep inhalation with very slow exhalation 25 times in the morning and evening every day. If you do that regularly, that will help to modulate the autonomic nervous system. So as a result, when you feel stress, you won't feel the discomforting symptoms like palpitation and things. Number 2 is something called 3 blessings. Before going to bed every night, write down 3 happy events which have happened today in your life. Small events like eating some tasty food or listening to some good music or called by a friend or anything like that. Just write down these 3, read them, tell to yourself that your life is not bad and go to sleep. Number 3 is something called childhood visit. When you go to bed, close your eyes and remember one childhood event, a pleasant event, a happy event which happened before 10 years of age. So go back in time, go to the emotions of that day, and enjoy that phase and sleep. The last thing you think when you go to sleep would be the first thing to affect you in the morning. So once you go do this childhood visit every day, when you wake up in the morning, you'll be feeling much more energetic. Then coming to the next question. Does exercise and Bdnf increase cognitive skills? Definitely. Cognitive skills, including lot of skills, including information processing, memory itself, different domains of memory. Exercise definitely increases cognitive skills through 3 or 4 mechanisms. Number 1 is increase in blood flow. Another one is Bdnf, the brain-derived neurotropic factor. Another thing is by enhancing dopamine and thus increasing concentration. Another mechanism is by increasing endorphins, generating a pleasant frame of mind, which should help you to indulge more time in productive activities. So that's it. So definitely it increases cognitive skills. So most of the other things are comments.
Hello.
Any other questions?
Sir, most of the time we are afraid of going outside due to this COVID problem, and many of us are having the same situation that morning walk, evening walk, everything is left behind. So in this case particularly, what to do to remain free from stress and other things which are occurring in everyone's family, I think.
Okay. So there is absolutely no problem in doing exercises. But the moment you go out from your home, you have to take care of yourself. You should wear a mask such that it covers your nose and mouth perfectly. If you go out, if possible, if you can wear an N95 mask, you are perfectly protected. And don't lower the mask at a public place at any cost. At any cost, don't lower the mask at a public place, even if it is to speak to somebody, because it is going to be damaged. But wearing such a mask, using a sanitizer to sanitize your hand before you touch your face, the pocket sanitizer can be kept in your hands. You can go for a walk. Absolutely no problem in going for a walk. Need not go to distant places, at least in front of your home, nearby places you can go for. No need to do away with exercise completely. And again, remain connected with maximum number of human beings through social media. Use social media in a productive way. Go back to in time, chat with some of your old school friends and remain connected with them also. That would also give you a sense of well-being. Stress would be reduced. So we have another question. What is the role of faith and religion in maintaining mental health? So what is the psychology of prayer? Let me explain that to you. So a large number of you may be praying, maybe subscribing to religious philosophies. But whether you go and pray in a temple or a mosque or a church, wherever it is, has any God given you an answer to any of your questions? Have you listened or have you heard any words of answer from any God? I hope no. But still, you feel relieved after praying. The reason for that is that you may go and pray in front of your God after doing the most heinous crime in the world. You are telling to God about whatever you have done, asking for forgiveness, whatever it is. It is sure that the God is not going to throw you away from your life. God is not going to criticize you for what wrong you have done. God is not going to tell you that go away, you dirty fellow, don't come to me. So that is the psychology of prayer. Whatever thing you do when you go and pray, you have a feeling that you would be unconditionally accepted by your God. That state of unconditional acceptance is what gives you mental strength. So those people who believe in God, it's wonderful, it's okay, but don't, you know, take it to a fanatic level to such an extent that don't start criticizing the faith of another person. Don't start criticizing a person if he is a non-believer in God too. Everyone has, the liberty to subscribe to his own belief. If your spirituality is working for you, great, absolutely no problem in proceeding with that. So financials, burden, and COVID, that is another very important problem. It's a real problem. So the studies have shown that maximum number of stress or maximum severe stress is there in Kochi district, even though maximum number of people affected by mental health issues is in Trivandrum district. So when we go to the details of that, we understand that Kochi being an industrial city with a lot of business enterprises and things, it is the maximum affected city financially from the financial point of view. So what we can do is to reorganize our lifestyle in such a way that the spending quotient comes down. We can start an agricultural self-sufficiency drive as a result of which we can cultivate some fruits and vegetables in our own backyard. The spendthriftiness which used to be a part of our life has to be curtailed. The fast food culture has to be. So reduce insensible expense or exorbitant expense in the best way possible. And that would be one positive way to learn something out of this pandemic and go forward without getting affected. Mobile phone by students, definitely mobile phone by students. I have mentioned about it in extensively in my presentation. It would be worthwhile if we reduce the time of mobile use to less than 1 hour per day for entertainment purpose. I tell the students that if you are attending online classes, as far as possible, use desktop or laptop and sit at maximum distance possible. Don't use mobile for online classes as much as possible. But if there is no way out, of course we can use, but take breaks in between that. And for entertainment and activity, don't use mobile for more than 1 hour, because if it is used for a long period of time, as I have mentioned, it can lead to lack of coordination between the cerebral hemispheres, hyperactivity, and impulsivity, anger outburst, and things like that. So that's it. Situations where some kids don't have gadgets and technology, and as a teacher we can go out when there is a lockdown, of course. So that is where social interventions become relevant. Social intervention in the sense the society can identify such people and help. We did a drive here in the month of June when the online education started, when I spoke to some of my students who joined hands to buy some electronic devices for those people who couldn't afford. And that kind of social interventions would definitely help. We need not shell out the money for that, but we may have the contacts in society to mobilize the resources. Because as teachers, the biggest asset we have is our students, our former students, who may be doing well in various parts of the globe. So a few messages to them, and I'm sure that a lot of help would be coming pouring. So that is something which I did here. I appealed to some of my students who were doing really well, and they were really, happy to provide some sort of assistance to the socially deprived fellow beings. They join hands, and then we had our own problems in transporting things and like that, but our medical students helped in doing that, and the finances were provided by our former students. And such kind of networking and linking we can do as teachers, and we are the people who are best equipped to do such kind of mobilization, because you'll be having students everywhere in various parts of the globe doing well, and that is the biggest achievement and biggest sense of fulfillment for a teacher. No other profession like that of a teacher. So I think the questions have ended. No more questions are there in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you.
So, dear all, we will move on to the last session. Myself, Dr. Sibujinetto, STEM Professor, School of Pedagogical Sciences. I will be proposing vote of thanks today. So, we are moving on to the vote of thanks. Dr. Arun B. Nair, Associate Professor of Psychiatry, Medical College, Trivandrum. Professor Dr. Asha JV, School of Pedagogical Sciences and Chairperson of the day's session. Professor Dr. Minikuti, Head of Department, School of Pedagogical Sciences and General Convener of the webinar. Professor Dr. Jaya Jays, School of Pedagogical Sciences and Dean Faculty of Education, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam. Dr. T.V. Tulasidharan, Senior Professor, School of Pedagogical Sciences and Convener of the webinar. Dr. Sajna Jalil, Associate Professor and Organizing Secretary of Dr. Ismail Tamirasheri and Dr. Muhammad KV, Assistant Professors, School of Pedagogical Sciences and coordinators of the webinar, all staff members of Pedagogical Sciences, and my dear participants. On this fourth day of the national webinar on education during COVID-19 and beyond, we are fortunate enough to have an eminent scholar in the field of psychiatry, Dr. Arun B. Nair, Associate Professor of Psychiatry, Medical College, Trivandrum, who besides his busy schedule, out of keen interest, had agreed to be with us for the session on psychosocial impact of COVID-19 among students, teachers, and parents. So we had a wonderful, Doctor, you have really given a vivid picture of the change in lifestyle of each one of us and was telling us about what need to be changed, what we need to concentrate on, and what all changes are to be effected in our life during this COVID time. From the time we woke up till we go to sleep, including the importance of going on out into the sun, importance of exercises, taking enough water, and how we are to use electronic gadgets, then on to how one goes into depression and how we can help them, what is mental illness and how to come out of mental health issues, and had also discussed in clear terms the doubts raised by our participants. So thank you from the bottom of the heart. Now I extend my wholehearted thanks to Professor Asha JV, Pedagogical Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi University, for extending a warm welcome to our resource person and to all of us, and for meticulously chairing the session of the day. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. A. Minikuti, Professor and Head of Department, School of Pedagogical Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi University, and General Convener of this webinar. Her humble but able leadership has once again led us from the forefront of another national webinar by the School of Pedagogical Sciences. I, on behalf of all, propose unbound words of gratitude to you for organizing this webinar. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. T.V. Tulasidharan, Senior Professor of the School of Pedagogical Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi University, and convener of this webinar. Sir, your gracious presence itself is so motivating to all of us. I express deep sense of gratitude to you on behalf of organizing committee and on behalf of all the participants. Dr. Jayanthi's Professor, School of Pedagogical Science and Dean, Faculty of Education, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam. On behalf of one and all, I sincerely thank you, ma'am, for the constant support and encouragement extended. And Dr. Sajina Jalil, Associate Professor, School of Pedagogical Sciences, the organization secretary of this webinar, is the brain behind the one-week national webinar that is going on. Education during COVID-19 and beyond. Madam, first of all, I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate you on behalf of the organizing committee and the participants, and we expect from you more events like this in future. On
Thank you,
behalf
sir.
of one and all, I sincerely thank you for taking the pain in such constrained situation to organize this webinar for the benefit of the academic community at large. At this juncture, I also wish to acknowledge Dr. Ismail Tamarasheri and Dr. Muhammad KV, Assistant Professors, School of Pedagogical Science, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, and the coordinators of this webinar. On behalf of the organizing committee and the participants, I voice the words of thank you to both of you. I also wish to remember the support of all the staff members of the School of Pedagogical Sciences for making this program a success. Once again, remembering one and all of the participants who is part of the program and encouraging us day by day. Thank you all for the kind cooperation and constant support. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.